Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed. Now, we are exploring here we go. Right. So, we are exploring what it takes to learn the dialectic so that we can understand the conversation Socrates is having with Jesus. What are the dynamics happening? Where is it going well? What are the difficulties faced when exploring an idea? How do we communicate an idea effectively? And can we anticipate those difficulties? Because ultimately we want to master the dialectic ourselves, seeing as that's kind of our job here. That's how we think. That's the art of thinking, the art of communication, the art of exploring an idea. But also it's the spiritual art, because if the idea you are exploring through the dialectic is, well, the ideas that we focus on here, then it is a kind of meditation or contemplation. What some say, the archetype for meditation. As other forms of meditation takes pieces of the dialectic and makes that their whole thing. You have to focus on something. Let's make our spiritual method focusing on something. You explore a question. Let's make that our whole thing, just a question. But notice that the questions that are normally taken as a spiritual method, the koans, are nonsense questions, questions that can't be answered. Notice focusing on a candle or your breath or something. Again, lack understanding. So this is what makes a paradigm a paradigm. Understandability or understanding or the logos. And we have been looking at that in our reading. It's the understandability of intelligence that is the cause of reason and patterns in our world. And it's that understandability of pure mind, called the logos, that allows it to be the model of reality, or the paradigm. So the logos is what makes it the paradigm. The logos is what we follow with the dialectic, but also what Socrates has been saying. The dialectic is the power of the logos. So the art of the logos, the art of understanding, of following the understandable patterns of reality to reach that paradigm, which is the spiritual experience. It's a peak experience. It's everything all at once. It's the paradigm, of course. And what we're also learning is that's not the end. That's not the end, because you can apply the dialectic or understanding, fixing my lights, to that peak experience to transition through it to our ultimate goal, knowing the self. And that is what Socrates has been focusing on with Jesus. We're able to understand that because we ourselves are learning that paradigm. We're learning the map. So we're learning the map, and the method of following that map, walking through the maze, is the dialectic. And Socrates is trying to get Jesus to reflect on his peak experience. And only through understanding can you do this, because that's what understanding is. It reflects on causes and principles with reason and evidence, verified in direct experience. These are the things that make something true, is what we've been learning. And that's the game. Truth and humanness. It's not just a matter of being able to follow the logos and with your own understanding to understand the truth. It's not enough to use reason and understanding in your conversation through the dialectic. Well, because that also is about truth, communicating truth, understanding the specifics of truth, benefiting through truth. There's also the human element to it as well. The dialectic allows us to communicate that. And understanding the map or paradigm of the soul's development, or the development of any intelligent being, for us, souls, allows us to navigate that humanness. It's not enough to know truth. How can you use it? Those are the two things. And those are the two things that we're learning are the categories within that paradigm that we're learning. The truth, or the model, or the paradigm, and its use, its activity, model and activity. And that's the two things we're here for. Master truth and humanness. Know the paradigm, know the art, and use it. So for that, we have to not only know the stages of development, but for the human soul or intelligence in their evolutionary process, but also recognize the counterattacks, the human counterattacks to new truth, understanding, and insight. Understand why we have counterattacks. What is the force that opposes understanding? Belief. Why does that matter for us? Because at one stage of our life, we didn't have a mastery of understanding or language. We didn't have a practice of reflecting through questions and dialectic. We were 3, 4, 5 years old, but we were stuck. We were dependent upon certain people who pretended to know shit they didn't know. Parents, parental figures. Why? Because that's what they thought it meant to be knowing. Pretend cosplayer Noah. Why? Well, they learned it from their parents. Well, where did their parents learn it from? Oh, their parents. And well, where do they? Oh, they're copying their parents. All the way back to the cave. Therefore, we can say the cosplaying a Noah, pretending to be knowing without mastery of the truth through logos and dialectic, without being able to function with it, the humanness, its activity, those two things, knowing the paradigm and being able to function with it, we call wisdom or true knowingness. Not having any of that, but pretending because, well, if your kids don't believe you, parents kill their children. So what we're learning is this is not only, well, this is therefore what we all have to, well, don't have to, but as a survival tool, as a kind of solution to the problem of growing up the way that we allow kids to grow up in our society. Again, from caveman times, growing up in a tribe, in a cave, being told everything outside the cave is wrong and different and scary. Belief. Belief is a kind of solution. We pick up fundamental beliefs about ourselves and reality, and belief as a way of grabbing something, apprehending something, comprehending something, is a fundamental cognitive function, use of your mind, that opposes understanding. Why? Well, that's simple. If you understand something, you don't have to believe someone else. It's just that simple. Now, we have been exploring belief through definition, demonstration. How does belief oppose understanding, and our therefore development, if development is through understanding, our benefit, if understanding is needed for our benefit, solving problems and reaching our excellence. How is belief opposed to those things? Our good, our benefit. Oh, and if truth as well, if truth is apprehended through understanding. By definition, why is belief in opposition to goodness, truth, benefit? In its demonstration or functioning, how does belief function in a way where it causes our harm and opposes those things? Division. What are all of the different divisions of a belief? Kinds of belief that all can be seen to function in this way? Or what are the different divisions in how we use belief in our relationships, in our governance? The Conservative Party or the right-wing party, it's a group bound by sick beliefs. How do they function? Opposition to truth? Opposition to benefit? Do they do harm? Religion, same thing. So, definition, demonstration, division, conclusion. Where will this end? What's the conclusion? And of course, what we're seeing is the conclusion is Armageddon. If belief opposes what's needed to solve problems and reach our excellence, it opposes our goodness, our benefit, our development, our spiritual growth, and can only inflict harm because you need understanding to benefit, where does it end? That's called a dialectic. Definition, the thing itself. Demonstration, how does it show itself or function? Division, what are the implications or different areas of its functioning? And conclusion. So a dialectic on belief to show it's the fundamental cause of human problems, as it's a cognitive functioning that opposes our intended functioning as human souls, the development of understanding. So it's understanding all human problems, because if it's a human problem, it first has its origin as a state of mind. State of mind. So we don't have to even address specifics, because it is a shared root cause. Hey, everyone who's done a bad thing has done it from a state of mind. So if we can understand the cause in a state of mind, how are we apprehending? Is it belief or is it understanding? Then we can understand all human problems. So, belief is what opposes it. And of those divisions, the specific one we do get from childhood, which means it's the job for every human being, is called the pathologos, to survive our upbringing, a fundamental belief about ourself, in which we take the blame for an injustice we suffered against ourselves when we were actually doing really well, but doing well in a way that threatens the cosplay, threatens the act, threatens the sick way of being inherited from parents to child, all the way back to caveman days. We take the blame for that injustice. We carry that injustice within our soul, which is the cause of our anger that we carry. We're all angry until we resolve our pathologos. And the cause of our projection. We project our problems onto the world, or projection and blind spots, to add what isn't there or to be blocked from what is. That's the functioning of belief. That's called interpretation. So another way of understanding human problems is interpretation versus seeing. And that's what we've been doing on this channel. How do we learn to see without interpretation? By learning to read. Not what do you think the book's about, but what's there to be seen. And of course, that involves also the dialectic. Once again, it's all about dialectic, baby. So, we're learning to master understanding, which is about truth, but while recognizing at the same time, we also have to acknowledge the humanness. And because we all carry a belief from childhood as part of a family tradition of ignorance, we all carry this opposition to what we are supposed to be doing. Acknowledging that is part of the humanness. Therefore, if our job is to know the truth and function with it, our dialectic has to recognize not just the stages of development that we lead people through and go through ourselves, but the counterattacks the forces of human opposition to our own benefit, goodness, and development. We need both. And that's what we've been doing. And we are seeing it demonstrated in how Socrates is communicating to Jesus, and what's Jesus' response. And in principle, when you are challenging someone to go beyond the level of seeing they're currently reached, if they're a stage 3 to get to stage 2, or from stage 2 to stage 1, it is likely that they will have this kind of negative response, opposing truth, opposing understanding, opposing their own benefit. And as it is just as our individual pathologos, that's the name of a sick logos, if the power of the logos is the dialectic, the power of what opposes the logos is our pathologos. That's the official term for that kind of false belief about ourself and reality, about goodness and justice that we carry. That's the fundamental driving force in our life that we don't even know we have, is the cause of our anger, is the cause of our projection. But also, when we have an opportunity of having power over others, that's the role we play. We cosplay, we pretend to be, we imitate that same model, not the truth model, but the false model. So while we said fundamentally there are two things we're here to master, truth and humanness, or the model paradigm and its use or activity, so too is the opposite. The false model, which is called the pathologos, and its activity or use, that's the human drama. So when a capitalist gets power over their employees, they inflict the same kind of injustice that they have suffered themselves. Elon Musk does Nazi shit. What do you know? His parents were Nazis. So capitalism is fundamentally sick for many reasons, but this is one. It allows those governed by ignorance to inflict suffering on others because it doesn't have a standard of truth, there's our paradigm, and a activity of understanding, like being a mechanic. You need to know the truth of an engine and how to fix an engine. Medicine, you need to know the truth of the human healthy body and how to function in a beneficial way towards it. Knowing and understanding. Capitalism doesn't allow that shit. So we have the Epstein class. Those that rise to positions of power are playing out their sickness in the worst ways. The Epstein billionaire class of capitalism. Politics, same deal. Most easy to see and most sick, of course, is the right wing. That's just, by definition, it's the pathologos party, to conserve the false, sick beliefs that we have because we think we benefit from it. But notice, everyone does that to a degree. We think we benefit from carrying our sick beliefs and old ways of being. I need it. I can't be free of belief. I can't allow myself to be myself. I can't be without a mask that I carried from childhood. Bullshit. That's not true. That's also conservatism. And what do we see every right-wing or fascist or conservative or Republican group do with their power? Inflict suffering and death and destruction across the world. Because belief opposes understanding. Belief opposes benefit. It opposes goodness. It opposes development. It opposes everything good. That's the pathologos. Everything good, the logos. See? Logos good, pathologos bad. Another realm where you don't have to demonstrate any knowledge of a paradigm that's true and understanding of it in its use. Religion. Where I live, you walk down the street on an evening and you get dozens of these most sick, stupid, ignorant people yelling at others in a self-righteous way about how they are the best boys and you are a bad person because they just believe it. It's not true. It's not beneficial, but they feel like a big, strong, tough guy saying, religion this, religion that, you're going to burn in hell, you're going to burn in hell. And of course, when religion gets power, yeah, they were the Epstein class before the Epstein files were, well, not released, but again, it's the human condition. Now, not everyone. It's just that capitalism, conservatism, and religion allows for the most fervently attached, the most savage and barbaric. Why do we call it that? Because it's, again, remnant from caveman times. They allow the worst people to rise to the top because belief. Where else can believers pretend to be knowing? So the most blocked from understanding are also the most blocked from the good. Therefore, the most sadistic and cruel. So if you are the worst person, not because you're evil, because you're blocked from understanding, what jobs can you have? Can't be a mechanic, you need to understand how a car works. Can't be a surgeon, you need to understand how to do surgery. Oh, you can be a Republican or a right-winger. You can be a religious person. Oh, and you can also be a capitalist if you were born into wealth. So, we have a system that encourages the worst people to be isolated or insulated from what they're specifically born here to do, reflect on their pathologos beliefs, and learn and develop. We have a system that prevents that and instead gives them power over others, so we see the Epstein class, perpetual war, perpetual injustice, making this current stage of human development Hades or hell. Not really hell, but as close to it as we can get because it's a society ruled by belief, which opposes understanding. So thankfully, we have someone who personifies belief itself to the point where he is the best at religion. Jesus. In conversation with someone who personifies the best of understanding. Socrates. Making this book, perhaps one of the greatest books ever written. It's a goddamn banger. We talked about the past of our heritage, picking up our pathologos that's inherited through generations, learnt, not just inherited, learnt. Equally so, this book bangs so hard that your future generations will have brain trauma because of how much this book bangs. They'll have CTE. That's a joke that I make. It doesn't sound like it, but actually it's very funny. What about the ignorance and evil of socialism? What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Can you say more about that? What do you mean? What do you see as problematic about this way of organizing things? Say more so I understand where you're thinking. So that's the game. To move from belief into understanding. So that was a little exploration of the divisions. Capitalism, religion. What was the other one? Capitalism, religion, conservatism are all belief-based groups. And whenever they have power over others, death, destruction, misery, injustice. While at the same time recognizing that's a human condition, because we all picked up false beliefs as a kind of solution to our own upbringing, taking the blame for an injustice we suffered. That's the cause of our anger and interpretation, but also a goal. We want to have power over others so we can be the knower. The cycle of violence and ignorance. I think a person in chat was trolling. Or maybe a bot. Because we all know that socialism isn't evil at all, it's the opposite. It's very good. But of course you need understanding for that. If you are a belief person, you might lick the boat boots of billionaires. No, we should have no power. We should be exploited by the capitalists. We should not have housing or food. And only a few billionaires should have housing and food. More housing and food that they can ever live in or eat. Because, why? Are they better? No, they're worse. By definition. Oh. Can they live in those 400,000 houses? Nope. Oh. What do they have them for? Oh, it's a way of taking out more money from the system. What do you know? Capitalism is a disgusting sickness. Opposing understanding, opposing growth. All it is about how you can exploit your fellow man for the most profit, feeding children, feeding orphans into the orphan crushing machine for profits. That's capitalism. It's disgusting. So if you don't realize that, you have work to do. So think about it. But I think that was a troll. Or a bot. Maybe a Russian bot. So let's just delete that from the chat. So interesting though, why do we have technology and resources focused into bots?
This guy's doing something worse than slop with AI. This is like sludge.
Sludge. Why do we use technology to create sludge and slop that opposes human development? Someone is sharing an understanding of human problems and what we need for our development. Why do we have some bots that want to stop that? Why don't we have technology used to help people? Why does it always hurt people? That's the pathologos. So, in order to overcome that, we have this book, someone personifying understanding, talking to someone who personifies belief, demonstrating the truth, and its human use. Socialism is ruled by a corrupt elite. No, I don't think you know the definition of socialism. Socialism is the opposite. That's capitalism you're talking about. The corrupt elite we call the Epstein class. That's capitalism. Socialism is if you, it's sharing the ownership of the means of production. So in other words, if you go to a job, you're being exploited all the time and you don't have a say. You disagree with the owner? Well, you're fired. Good luck starving to death. But socialism says, well, why does that person have to own everything and get to exploit everyone? Why don't we all benefit equally by shared ownership in the means of production? Why does that guy get to own the factory? He's not better than me. In fact, he seems to be worse than me. Because shut up is why. So you're talking about capitalism. If you honestly think that, and I don't know if you are, or if you're a bot or a troll, then you have been lied to by capitalists, which is another problem of capitalism. Capitalism has to teach you that, hey, sharing the world's resources is actually bad. And they seem to have only two arguments. Because you're bad and we're better, we need to have everything and tell you what to do, otherwise you'll be bad and lazy. And the only other argument is because it creates, what is it? Not technology, innovation. But of course, that's also a lie. It prevents innovation, obviously. If you have to spend your life sacrificing your time and energy for survival, you have very little time to focus on creating new things. And also innovations that doesn't serve the exploitation of the people or profit of the capitalist Epstein class is killed. We've got many, many stories of people who, you know, well, right now we have oil executives murdering hundreds of innocent children in Iran at school because they want oil. Why not a water engine? Why not a solar engine? Because that would be an innovation that doesn't serve their ability to exploit. So capitalism is an exploitative. Capitalism and socialism are two sides of the same coin. It's a dialectic of control. There is no higher. No, you don't understand what a dialectic is, and you don't understand socialism or capitalism. Capitalism is just, it's just in principle. It's how can you exploit and extract. That's it. There's no concern about well-being or good, health, or development. Socialism is, hey, the workers should have some fucking say in their life. We're not slaves, so they're not opposites. I mean, they are opposites, they're not two sides of the same coin. I don't know why you'd think that. If you were a billionaire, I don't think you'd be spending your time talking to me. So I don't know why you'd defend capitalism. Unless that's a fantastic example of what we're saying. So, of course, our chatter would be benefited by a world that wasn't being run through injustice, exploitation, the enshittification. Everything is made worse and worse and worse, and more expensive. So eventually, how does it end? One small group of people ruling everything, and Armageddon, pretty much. Our chatter isn't benefited by that, but instead, they fight against their own interests. That's belief. To oppose understanding and development for savage, primitive loyalty to belief. That's it. That's the human game. Now, why are we calling it savage and primitive? Well, we're tracing it back to its root cause. Just as if chatter grew up in a different family, maybe a family with better understanding, they wouldn't be so, loyal to capitalism, which is by definition sick, cruel, unjust, destructive, exploitative, opposed to all human life and development, giving us the Epstein class, giving us perpetual war, giving us slavery, giving us double-tapping children's schools in Iran. So all of these horrific things being defended by a human being. Why? Well, if they're in a different family, they wouldn't have this sick belief. Now, if you ever talk to someone who supports capitalism, they are stupid and cruel, usually. Savage. They find it funny that humans are murdered for profit. They find it funny that humans get exploited. So sick people. If that's your parent and you are 4 years old and you're dependent on that parent, you have a choice. Question them, which could mean your possible murder, for challenging dear leader, challenging Donald Trump's daddy. Someone who is known for murdering people for fun with the KKK. Imagine challenging him when Donald Trump, say pretending to be Donald Trump here in this example. If your dad was a KKK murderer for fun and profit, imagine challenging him as a 4-year-old. See? And what does Donald Trump do when he gets power? Buys children's beauty pageants and does the same thing to other children and worse. So, if we all have that sort of condition growing up, again, to different extents, of course, we have to sacrifice our development of understanding to survive. We don't have to. You could choose to challenge them, which also might mean your death. But as adults, we need to use the dialectic to go back to that origin scene, reflect on that scene, and answer in a way we weren't able to. Otherwise, we'll be stuck in what's called fate. So our chatter, if it's a real person, stuck repeating the same problems of ignorance and suffering over and over again, not even knowing that they are just being a loyal, savage, barbaric slave to their own misery, suffering, and fate. So that's the human condition. And just as we had to sacrifice understanding for belief, we didn't have to. We chose to. So too, the root cause of our pathologos is a kind of solution to a problem. So pathologos individually, a solution to a problem that no longer applies and keeps us stuck in our problems. So too, human beings prior to our mastery of language and reflection, ousia and logos, survived if we were afraid of everything different to our cave, to our tribe. Those who are blindly loyal to tribe leader would sometimes happen to survive. So the pathologos, or this loyalty to belief, is a kind of solution that no longer applies. And because it's part of our early stages of development, we can call it savage, or we can call it barbaric and primitive. Because of how it functions to support bad things and try and fight against good things, we call it savage and barbaric. So savage, barbaric, primitive, way of being, cognitive function, and state of mind. State of mind is key. Because unless our chatter is in an open and curious state of mind, everything we've just said will be completely ignored. They won't learn, they won't grow, they won't benefit. Because their state of mind is blocked or closed. So the two things that we're here to master: truth and humanness. Which means we need a map of those human states of mind that we move through in our pursuit of truth and knowing. That's what we're doing. So, having that will allow us to read the book and understand what Socrates and Jesus are doing. And of course, as we're all souls, we're all in this journey, we're all in states of mind. This is necessary for our own health and well-being. We don't want to be stuck like the chatter, violently fighting for what harms us. Capitalism, religion, conservatism, Nazism, racism, sexism, all of these false beliefs that oppose truth and benefit. We want to get out of that shit. We don't want to be miserable. We all want understanding. Fundamentally. That's our purpose. So, overcoming the blocks to that is our goal. So, let's just fix the setting here. Whoops. Not like that. Alright. Okay, let's leave it alone then.
I hate to have to tell you this. That was fake. That was AI.
Wasn't an AI person? Looks like it by the name. Anyway. But hey, there might be capitalists out there who think, sharing resources and wealth, bad. Giving it all to the billionaire Epsteins, good. Capitalism, good actually. War and murder and slavery, good actually. So it's important that we tell the truth. So, the map or paradigm of states of mind we need to learn for ourselves and for our functioning with others. So far, we've seen that there are 5 stages fundamentally. And using that model of truth and humanness, or model and activity, we can use this to understand this map a little bit easier. So there's a model and there's an activity in the realm of mind. We have mind, don't we? Can you put it in a test tube? Nope. Is it there? Yep. We have the physical world. PHYSIC, the physical. Now we could also call that the realm of being, because it's eternal. That's why it's true. So eternally true. And the realm of becoming. This is where we are as a soul. In our development or becoming. We want our state of mind to be permanent or being. And if we want truth, it has to be something in being. Because that's where truth is. Principles, causes, fundamental things that don't change. For it to be a fundamental cause or principle, it can't change. So therefore, it has a rulership over our physical world of becoming. So we can say there's a model and activity of the realm of mind, or if you are somebody motivated by belief, as we said, where do we get belief? An imitation of somebody else, imitating someone who was imitating, it's all imitation. Why do you believe them? Did your parent or CEO or conservative or religious person use knowing of a model or understanding principles? Did they make it so you could see it as well, like a math teacher? Nope. They were just wearing a funny hat. So they are called Pope or priest. They were just wearing a suit with a red tie. So, politician. They were just angry or looking knowing, or they looked their most beautiful when they acted in this way as a parent. So it's all a physical appearance, the realm of appearances. So people who are stuck at this level of cognitive development, we call shapes and colors, appearance, appearances. They're motivated by shapes and colors. Activity. So here we have the stage 5, or the 5th hypothesis, the 4th stage of our development. So in the physical world, the activity that we do that is in the physical world only, opposing anything more meaningful or higher in a higher realm, is the 5th stage. Materialists, atheists, reductionists, everything is just chemicals. There is no meaning. There is no mind. There is no truth. The left wing, the Democrats, the establishment Democrats, there's no understanding. So we should let the Nazis be a political party. But did they have any understanding? No. Then aren't they just going to hurt everyone? Yeah. And steal everything? Yeah. And do crimes? Oh yeah, definitely. It's what the right wing is all about. Shouldn't we stop that? No. Why? Because there is no understanding. It's all a matter of opinion, bro. And of course, those fascists are the model from the physical world belief. The activity that we're here to master is the use of our mind, the mastery of our mind. That's 3rd hypothesis. There's our understanding. And the model of truth, or the paradigm, is the 2nd. Our goal is to reach the 1st hypothesis, which is, hey, even mind has to be experienced by something. We call that the self. For there to be goodness in mind, the knowing and the functioning, there has to be a cause of goodness. So we can call this goodness, color. This one. So we have here goodness, needed for our benefit, oneness, so we can bring it together into a paradigm of knowledge and understanding, create a unity within ourselves, and it's the truth. For those things to exist, they also have to have a cause the one, the cause of oneness, or the good. So the self good, or the good self, the self what to be the cause of goodness, the cause of oneness, the one self, the cause of truth, the truth of the reality, the truth of justice, the truth of beauty, has to be the idea of true. So the self is all of those things as the first cause, but also the final cause because it's our goal. So therefore we have a map of human development. But here's the thing, they're states of mind. You're not just in one. Your states of mind change. That's the humanness. So our chatter in chat today, opposing his own goodness, would be therefore in a state of mind of the fifth hypothesis. That's their state of mind. And it's likely they won't listen to me explaining the true nature of capitalism and socialism in a simple, easy to understand way, because this functions is an activity that functions against the mind. So my use of understanding will fall on deaf ears until they get themselves out of that state of mind. Become curious, become open, become receptive. States of mind. Fourth hypothesis or belief. The opposition, the opposing, or the disconnection or disconnection from mind is the fifth. Maybe there is a God, but we can't know it. Maybe there is principles, but it's beyond us. Or maybe they don't even exist. Belief. Third hypothesis, understanding or dianoia, understanding. Why dianoia? As we've been looking at, you can understand things in the physical world. We call that science. But for science to do science, you have to reason and have evidence, use evidence for scientific understanding. But where does reason come from? Where does experience come from? And by the way, if you find a scientific theory, does it always have to work? Will gravity just not work one day because it's Thursday? So there are principles, axioms. If it's true today, it'll be true tomorrow. That are all ignored in science because it stays in the physical world. Therefore, science can never give you an understanding of goodness, oneness, or truth, because they're non-physical things. They have scope over the physical world. They're needed in the physical world. So therefore, dianoia is what we call that third hypothesis. Nous. So we call that dianoia or understanding with a capital U. Dianoia is better. The model, the paradigm, which is a thing in mind so you can know it, there's our object of knowledge with a capital K. Knowing. This is therefore what is imitated by priests, kings, capitalists, and parents. Capitalists, kings, and clergy. Parent playing all three. They're imitating this in belief, doing harm. Interesting? Yes, the answer is yes. Super interesting. So, and of course, our question is also up, spammer.
This guy has found something beyond slop.
There's a spammer beyond slop.
I'm a human. I don't listen to robots.
You're a
You
robot.
sick fuck.
You sick fuck.
Robots will replace that, and that's terrifying.
So our question is, what is the state of knowing the self? That's our goal, to know the self, to know you. But these are states of mind you can move in and out of. Socrates goes on to say, hang on a second. There's more than that. For every one of these positions that has to exist in some way. Now, of course, the existence of existence up here is real, is true, is eternal, is in being. The physical world's level of existence is only transitory, change in the realm of appearances. So while we're talking about different cognitive functions, they have different objects. And of course, the ultimate truth, the real truth, the ultimate truth is the self. But you can oppose all of these. There is a state of mind where you could be opposed. So let's move this to the other side. So there is a state of mind which can be in opposition. We haven't explored that a lot. But Socrates said the whole point of the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th hypothesis is the reason they exist in the kind of way that they exist is to show us the necessity of the very thing they oppose. So if you're a 9th hypothesis person, you're in opposition to the 5th. What's 5th? The activity in the physical world as your highest state of mind, your highest reality, your highest idea of self. So if you're opposed to that, you're saying, hey, there's not even activity or parts. You can say parts, part and whole. There aren't even physical parts. There aren't even atoms. It's all illusion, nihilism. 8th hypothesis. What does the 4th say? The highest idea of reality is something in the physical world where we can come into a oneness or a whole. That's belief. Religion. Coming together in the megachurch singing Kumbaya to Jeebus. That's the highest stage of reality. Belief. Hey, you could be singing Kumbaya on Epstein Island, so it's also for capitalists. You could be singing Kumbaya at a Nazi rally, so it's also the highest level of reality for right-wingers. But also your family. So this is where we are. Human ignorance, 4th and 5th hypothesis. Ignorance. So our friend mentioned, what about the ignorance of socialism? It doesn't understand the definition of ignorance. Ignorance is the 4th and 5th hypothesis. Belief and the activity that opposes mind. That's what ignorance is. While these two, knowing and understanding, wisdom. That was a nice one. Now, the conversation in the book that's being had right now is exploring. Okay, so while the fourth and fifth is therefore ignorance, actually we should have this way. We can expand out what kind of ignorance you have into these opposites. Hey, nihilism in your ninth. You could have a conversation with someone, dialectician, who has a model of this model of truth that we have, and an activity, so model and activity, wisdom, that can help them see that nihilism is a incorrect position. But what if they said, fuck you, I am a nihilist? Not, I like this way of thinking, or it's an interesting theory. No, I am a nihilist. And I will fight anyone who opposes me. Then their ninth hypothesis, nihilism, is functioning as a fourth hypothesis, pathologos belief, opposing their development. When they use it to oppose their development, that's fifth hypothesis, activity. So you're not just in one. You can move in and out of these. But Socrates said the whole reason for these, oh, and by the way, the one that we're exploring now, just to finish that idea, is the seventh. Perhaps the most dangerous kind of belief and opposition. So I'm using disconnection. Let's use the word opposition. The most dangerous kind of opposition to knowing and understanding, or mind, which has ousia. There's our knowing. So the model, we could put ousia, the knowingness of the model, and the logos would be its activity. Of course, they're not separated. There is a logos within the model, allowing for it to be the paradigm. And also logos has its own existence, so it has its own ousia to keep itself real, existing. The fifth hypothesis is an opposition to mind, or ousia and logos. Actually, let's not have ousia and logos right here. Because the seventh hypothesis, which could be functioning as a belief, if you're tied to it, if you're stuck in it until you do midwifery, until you go back to the origin scene with the dialectic in hand to address the truth of that situation you've been carrying a false conclusion about. The worst kind could be the seventh, because it's in opposition to the third. So each of these are in opposition. Each of these have a kind of activity, fifth hypothesis, in opposition to the positive. So ninth hypothesis, there isn't even a meaningful activity in the physical world. Nihilism. Eighth hypothesis, materialism. Okay, there are physical things, so we're allowing for parts. So we're not, ninth hypothesis, opposing parts. We're allowing for parts, chemicals, atoms in the physical world, but there's no whole. There's no whole. No belief, and definitely no knowing and truth and reality. No meaningful activity in the physical world, just physical things. And ninth hypothesis, there aren't even physical things. You could say capitalists for our friend in chat. Eighth hypothesis. The only meaningful activity is down here. The activity in the physical world of appearances, that's the most meaningful thing. So therefore, how can I exploit and murder for profit? How can I own all the houses as a property owner? Yeah, children will die starving on the street. Humans will die starving on the street, homeless, but who gives a shit? There's no higher meaning to life other than fifth. Other than collecting physical things, exploiting the physical world. The world blows up, human species goes extinct. Why should I care? Therefore, to save the human, or to see the value of the human species, you have to realize there is a meaningful whole of mind. There's a reason every life matters, every human being matters, every soul matters. And our human species matter as a part within a whole in our development of mind. So, our purpose, as we've been saying, is the third hypothesis, because it's that third hypothesis that can address the fourth and fifth to remove your opposition to your goodness and development and remove your elite, savage, primitive allegiance to your false beliefs. That's the cause of your suffering, anger, projection, injustice in the world. That's called the dialectic in midwifery, which is the third hypothesis. Activity of mind we're here to master. That's our purpose. Just as the purpose of a steak knife is to cut steak, the purpose of a pruning knife is to prune, purpose of a skateboard is to do a nollie flip, the purpose of human beings is to master the third hypothesis. Third hypothesis also is an activity of mind that allows us to, as our paradigm of spirituality right there, recognize the logos inherent in ousia, or recognize the model as a paradigm. So it's our preparation for knowingness, but it's also, you can have an experience, an out-of-body experience of the model of mind without understanding. It's not going to do much for you. Integrate it, use it as a paradigm, get back to it more, stay in it longer. But also, third hypothesis therefore can purify what's below and perfect what's above. You perfect the activity by contemplating the model, but arguably the highest functioning is to use the third hypothesis on that model to recognize that it too must have a cause. That cause must be a higher state of mind, a higher stage of development, to go beyond through that to the first hypothesis, to know the self. And that we're seeing a demonstration of that in Socrates' conversation with Jesus in this book. Socrates, so using this map, we can recognize the human activity. Remember, it's one thing to know the truth, there's our map, but also another thing to use it in activity. There's our truth and humanness, or model and activity. Socrates, therefore, is engaged in third hypothesis with Jesus about his second hypothesis glimpse. See, it was a state of mind, but that triggered his fourth hypothesis pathologos response. So his state of mind changes. So they're all present all the time. It's our ability to participate in them or move in and out of them. So taking earlier, that third hypothesis on Jesus' second allowed him to contemplate his divine light experience. So maybe he could remember it or re-experience it, making him open, curious, insightful. But then Socrates used third to understand. So there's our higher use of understanding, to understand the second hypothesis's cause to move to the first. So third on the second to reach the first, which by the way is the ideal. Our triad of self, your existence as self, your state of mind, second hypothesis, and your activity third. Existence, power, and activity. And sound drop for fun.
Funny, cool, and accents. This is, come on.
Oh, funny and cool?
I would scoop the moon in a cup for you.
For me?
It makes sense.
I thought so. So, 3, 2, 1. But remember, if it was just as simple as being able to communicate the truth, then, I don't know, we'd only be getting half of the lesson. So, the humanness, Jesus is being triggered, his fourth hypothesis. So now Jesus in his fourth hypothesis, when he is triggered. Oh, but my beliefs say that we're the chosen people. My religious beliefs, my family beliefs, we are the zealots. Which is a class of family back then. When Jesus is in his belief state of mind, he can be a little bitch and fight back, attack Socrates, sabotage, talk over Socrates. Yesterday I was watching an interview, Emma from the Majority Report.
They're secretly turned on by it.
And we were secretly turned on by her. But we won't tell anybody because that would mean
some goons and some gooners and some weirdos.
We would be a gooning weirdo.
They're like a goon. They're a gooner.
And her third hypothesis understanding about world events were causing people who are loyal to belief, fascists, right-wingers, murderers, Nazis, to try and silence her by fifth hypothesis talking over her. Just as Jesus is trying to is on CNN or something, Emma from the Majority Report. Emma Vigland, who says,
I'm cute. Like a cutie pie.
Who tells us that she's a cutie pie. And if you disagree, we say,
how can you be this stupid? How is it legal?
If you disagree, we say you are illegally stupid. So, as third hypothesis on Socrates, dialectic, understanding, the power of the logos, the activity of the logos. On Jesus' second hypothesis, peak experience, to help him understand there must be a cause. Jesus is getting triggered in the fourth, and when he tries to take over the conversation, as those people did to Emma, or sabotage the dialectic, fifth. So we're seeing all of these states of mind being moved through in this dialogue. At this end of the book, this conversation, it's fucking brilliant. It's a masterpiece. If this is the map we are here to master as human beings and move through, this book is a fucking masterpiece. That's why I have 3 viewers. That's more than normal. Although that's often not correct, but there you go. Okay, but we also want to understand, while that's a great understanding of these, we want to understand the full map. How do we understand 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th? And specifically, how do we understand its purpose? We saw that what freed Socrates from his fifth hypothesis opposition to mind was to recognize its purpose was to be taken as an analogy. The physical world is an appearance. It's not true. It's not literal, but it can reflect. Just like your mirror, when you hold up your left hand in a mirror, that's not true. It's your right hand being held up. And it's two-dimensional. It's very diminished. It doesn't have mind. It doesn't have logos. It's an appearance of a lower dimension. But you can use the reflection in the mirror beneficially to learn about what is true, so long as you know its purpose. If you don't know the purpose of a mirror, like a wild animal, those YouTube videos where they put a big mirror in the jungle and a monkey sees it and flips out, or a bear sees it and goes crazy. Very funny, because animals are cute. They're very cute.
Spit on me.
Wow, Emma, calm down.
Oh my fuck.
But if you do understand what it is, its purpose, you can benefit. Socrates had a similar recognition that this fifth hypothesis, which claims that we are disconnected. So we had disconnection before, because it says, while there may be a mind, we can't touch it. Atheism. No, or agnostic, more strict agnostic. We can't know. Strict. There's a agnostic often is used to mean I'm open. I don't know if there is a higher truth in mind or self, and therefore meaning in reality, but I'm open to it. But strict agnostic means we can't know. Gnosis, nous. Against. Agnostic, we can't know. So a lot of materialists are there. We can't know. Anyway, so Socrates realized, hang on a second, its purpose was a reflection of self, because self is reflected into the model. Like your shadow. Do you have a shadow? Did you have to work hard to make it? Did you need a plan, an activity, or was it automatic? Now, for there to be model and copy, we talk about there being some sort of principle or cause. But here is our model. While the self reflects into being, being can reflect upon itself, ousia, as the model. So, and now we've gone from a one into a many, a oneness, giving us the first model. Self participating in its shadow uses its shadow as the model or paradigm for reality of time and space, doing the third hypothesis activity to create every frame 32 times per second of the physical, or however many it is, of the physical world. Creating the physical world. So therefore we can say of this, mind itself, wisdom, second and third hypothesis, is a kind of model itself so model and activity, model and copy, model and same thing, same principles, as above so below. But of course there has to be this gives us our idea of truth, true and false, model and copy, because the copy is not truth, it's a copy. It's false. But you need also the principle. Sometimes called axiom. There's our triad of self-logos terms. There has to be the principle of good for there to be goodness as the model of goodness for human souls. Our logos and mind. So the model of beauty, the model of justice. So while we talk about capitalists, conservatives, and clergy here in ignorance, that will only exist, the injustice suffered by this will only exist until we wake up and realize this is the model, just as the mechanic needs a model of a car, the doctor needs a model of a body. This is the model of truth and justice and beauty necessary for everyone who wants power in our society. And of course, they wouldn't want power, they'd want to be experiencing knowing. So it's a kind of responsibility for those people in a just world. Currently, people in power seek it. Fascists, war, injustice, Epstein class, the Epstein class of human beings who pretend to be second and third, but they're really in fourth and fifth belief and opposition to mind. So they want power. Someone who has actual wisdom doesn't want power, because why the fuck would they care about the copy, the physical world? Wouldn't they rather contemplate the model and have coffee with their friends contemplating the model, dream analysis, reflection, learning, reading, what we do here? Therefore, we won't have a just world until the people in power don't want it, and the people who want it can't have it. Which sounds funny and clever, but that means nothing unless you know the reasoning behind it. The reasoning is, if you know wisdom, second and third, you won't be interested in its reflection in the mirror. If this is experienced as truth, bliss, beauty, justice. As a species, we have to make a good case. Hey, you're the best of us. LeBron James, you're the best basketball player. We will give you $60 million to play basketball. You could do anything. Please play basketball for my team. I'll give you $60 million. A just society would say, hey, you are the best human soul because you have knowing of truth, second hypothesis, and understanding of it so you can function with humans, model and activity. You have wisdom. Is that worth more than a basketball game? Worth more than $60 million? That's our job. We will give you $1 billion million, a quadrillion dollars if you rule. So we have to say. Oh, but how will we pay for things? Well, your ruler is going to make sure you have all your fucking material needs met and you live in a utopia. So I don't think you'd even need money. Nor would he want it. So I think we're safe. But that's what's necessary for us. Any species, by the way. Any species. If you are in a tribe of bears and you have the most sick, unjust Epstein class bear and you make him in charge of everyone with not having to obey the laws like the kings, clergy, and capitalists don't have to do, then what will happen to that tribe? They'll go extinct. That's humans. That's the power of our ignorance, fourth and fifth hypothesis. But the tribe that says, oh, you are the best bear, you should be in charge, will survive. It'll be a win-win.
I don't know if you know this, but like, it's a win-win-win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
I love this guy.
I'm cute. Like, it's cutie pie.
The T-virus will transform me into an epic creation.
We will be transformed into epic creation if we do this. So, Socrates recognized the fifth hypothesis, which is to say we can't know mind, is a message about the self. What its purpose is to say, like, it's not your left arm, it's your right arm. The self, as the first hypothesis, is disconnected from everything as its first cause. The cause has to be prior to, more powerful than, and independent from its copy. So if you destroy a painting, the painter doesn't get blown up, doesn't get destroyed. Which is an interesting principle. Could everything be a message of self? If self is the one, the true, and the good, the first cause and our goal to know ourselves, it's our goal. Could everything be a message? Even the paradigm, the logos within Usia, the knowing of the model? Is that? Sure, it can create another, it can create a copy like itself, the physical world, but is its true purpose to help us reach the self? A kind of message about the self, like a mirror? Holy fuck. Have we just discovered one of the most important axioms or principles of reality? Because it explains everything and it's necessary to get you out of your problems. Because when Socrates realized the fifth, which says, oh, we can't know anything meaningful, we're just stupid humans, we're just ants in space. If there is a God, he doesn't care about us. Isn't literal, it's a copy in the physical world of a higher model, a distorted copy, a distorted reflection. When he realized actually what this cognitive this state of mind of human beings is for, is to tell us the self is disconnected from mind. As its cause, we can reach it, but it's not the same. That knowing experience of nous, mind knowing itself as Usia, pure being, the model, the peak experience is the penultimate experience. It might be the greatest experience, but the message we learnt from having reached it by going through the fifth is that even that peak experience ain't the self. The self has to be, therefore, above, transcendent, different, and better. You don't want to go nihilist. You don't want to say the self is nothing. It's transcendent. When Socrates saw this in the book that we're reading, he was freed from the fifth. And he talks about his journey continuing to reach the first only with the help of the dialectic and dream analysis. What about these negative hypotheses? The ones that are all rejections. In the book that we're reading, Socrates says, they exist as a state of mind that we can be in to show the logical, the rational necessity for these five to exist. These five have to exist in the way that they do. They have to. If you deny them, all you're doing is proving that they have to, the thing that you're denying has to be. Recognizing that frees you from that position. In some way, nihilism that rejects even parts in the physical world. We're not even parts. It's all the matrix. It's all delusion, deluding the deluded. Says there's no meaningful activity in the physical world. Just give up. Doom, we call them black-pilled or doomers. To them we say,
Get the fuck out!
if they give up, don't give up.
No, you're not the one that's mentally unwell. You're brave. You are
Crossing into new boundaries.
so we can cross into new boundaries.
It's awesome and it's gangster.
And that will be gangster. So in some way, our job as human beings is to master the model and map of truth and humanness, is to recognize each of these positions we can be in, but somehow they are defined by an opposition to these four here. And if we understand it sufficiently, we will show they can't be real, and those things that they are opposing have to exist in some way, either as a model or a copy. Which is fascinating, because that implies there has to be ignorance. For there to be reality, there has to be the principle or axiom or cause. So let's put in, whoops, too thick. That's what she said.
It's sad. And I'm sad for you.
Sorry, it was a bad joke.
First you're saying the F word or whatever you said. Now the tone is completely out of control.
Tone? Is it out of control?
Fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
Oh my goodness. The core. Zoom in a little bit. Pause. And like Tim Heidecker's band, I saw the Oscar special recently. That was fun. Axiom, his band's called Axiom, I think. No, it's called Dakar. Axiom is one of his guitarists, I think. So for the self to be as it is, it has to function in some way. Otherwise, it would be less than perfect. There's an analogy I heard once. If you were creating a man, a human dude, and you took away his testicles, would he be less than perfect? Overflow, creation. Would it be the ideal if it couldn't create? Testicles.
Fucking bitch, pussy ass fucker.
Where's my sound drop for testicles? Oh, it's not on the board. I'm gonna have to go into my folder to pull it out. I want to talk about testicles, so
Bull testicles. Bull testicles.
there we go. There's another one. Is there another one? There. Isn't there one where she talks about eating bull testicles?
Bull testicles.
Oh. What?
I'm eating the testicles of this bull, and I'm eating it raw.
All right, there we go. All of that just for that. Was that fun?
Can I do my plugs now? I'm trying to do comedy.
No plugs.
Dude, suck my dick.
Oh my goodness. Ah. Right, so necessarily somehow there has to be an effect or creation from the self as the highest cause and principle that allows us to learn about ourselves, or ousia, reflect on ourselves. Therefore, in the second hypothesis of Parmenides, the second hypothesis is defined as self participates in ousia. That's being. The being is the one participating in ousia. allowing self to know itself. Pretty neat. And by the way, that knowing of the self is the peak experience. Also the model. So, we might find ourselves depressed in that depressed state of mind of a nihilist, or a lonely, isolated state of mind of a materialist in the 8th. Hey, welcome, Dimitri. Or the one that we're currently talking about, the 7th hypothesis, perhaps the most dangerous, because if the 3rd hypothesis is the art we're here to master that allows us to purify our ignorance, perfect our wisdom, and to move beyond it to our ultimate cause to know the self, if all of that is the activity that we're here to master, then the state of mind and way of being that is defined by the opposition to that would be the most dangerous. So while our human problems are ignorance, our loyalty to the belief, so in essence, the pathologos is the 4th and the logos is the 3rd, the kind of 4th belief that we're identified with, the kind of opposition to mind, 5th hypothesis. So the kind of ignorance could be 7th. So while nihilism says that there is no parts or meaningful activity in the physical world, while that's nihilism, materialism or reductionism, reducing everything to its smallest components, love is just chemicals in the brain, dreams is just brains firing, perhaps that's fucking dangerous too. If dreams are our most important activity, it's our guide and gives us the information we need to purify our ignorance. 7th hypothesis said, oh yeah, there are parts of the physical world. And maybe there are even holes in the physical world. And now we're in the level of mind. Yeah, there is some higher forces over the physical world, principles, forces, effects beyond the physical world that have scope over the physical world. I'm not 8th or 9th. But you know what it isn't? Because remember, it's defined by what it opposes. It's not the logos. It's not the logos. So everything we're seeing here, a hierarchical structure where problems are ignorance. Our benefit is wisdom, and our goal is the self. So hierarchically arranged, problems are just a block to understanding. That's not real. There is no hierarchy. Problems are not wisdom blocked by ignorance. Then how do you explain reality? How do you explain the forces of being over the physical world as 7th? The forces are equal and opposite. Good versus evil. Devil versus Jeebus. If you do something wrong, it's because you are bad and you deserve punishment. Punishment fits here. How do we make you good? Fight against you with punishment, fines, murder, jail. Definitely not make your life better through meeting your material conditions and providing this kind of true education so you can do what you need to do to understand and remove your ignorance, perfect your understanding and knowing or wisdom, and know the self, which is your purpose for being, purpose of being for all people. No, fuck that. Just kill people who are different than me. Problems are, by the way, played into by capitalists. Oh yes, you are just you have to be punished and fired. The fear of homelessness, so no one gets a house, just the billionaires. The fear of starvation, no one owns the food, just the billionaires. You need that. Because you're bad. You're innately sinful. You're innately greedy. You need capitalism. A system where it's just try and fight for your own and hurt everyone else. There's a winner and a loser. Why? Why the fuck is there a win? Doesn't everyone win the more wisdom? Doesn't everyone win by purifying ignorance? Why the fuck do we have capitalism, our guy in chat from earlier, that says, oh no, only some can win? For these winners to be happy, we need 99% of the people losing. We need perpetual war so the billionaires can enjoy their mansions free from war. We need starvation and homelessness so the mansion-owning Epstein billionaires can enjoy their 50 houses and enjoy their fucking lobsters at the White House. Sick. No other species on our planet treats each other this way. That's a kind of ignorance. Pathologos sickness, represented as the seventh hypothesis. So what is it? No hierarchical development, the forces are equal and opposite. No ignorance and wisdom, or our universal ignorance that every human being gets in childhood called the pathologos. No universal logos or standard of beauty, excellence. It's you're a bad person or you're a sinner, or you're a Jew, or you're a Catholic, or you're a Protestant. You're in one group that opposes another group. There's no objective truth, it's just whoever wins. Might makes right. Might makes right, therefore fits in the seventh hypothesis. Without a standard of truth, it's all relative to your own opinion. So that idea, it's all just a matter of opinion, bro. Seventh hypothesis. What's true to you is true to you, and what's true to me is true to me, and who's to say what's right and wrong? If I think, what is America doing right now? Genociding Palestinian children is good, and that's just my opinion. And if your opinion is that it's bad, that's just your opinion. And my opinion will win if I can gain a position of power and put people who protest the genocide in prison or murder you. Seventh hypothesis. See? Can you see how terrible and disgusting and inhuman seventh hypothesis is? It opposes the very thing that does solve problems, third hypothesis, logos. It solves the very thing that does not just solve problems, but create our excellence and flourishing. Third hypothesis, logos. Opposes both. If this map is what makes life meaningful, you're not just trapped nihilist because you grew up with a nihilist family. You're not just trapped Jewish because you grew up in a Jewish family. You're not just trapped capitalist because you grew up in a capitalist family. You can make development not us versus them, winners and losers, but a development up a hierarchical, better at the top, worse at the bottom, stages of states of mind, ways of being, ideas of self and functioning, leading to the ideal state of self, existence, your ideal state of mind, and your ideal functioning, the first as your self, state of mind of the second, and third as your functioning. You can reach that. That's meaning. Therefore, the seventh hypothesis doesn't just justify inhumanity against humans under the sick idea of punishment. You are bad not because of ignorance, not because of systems that impoverish and enslave you, making it hard for you to learn this, do what we do on this channel. No, it's because you're a bad person, because you're a woman, because you're a brown, because you're a not my religion, because you're a poor. That's the seventh hypothesis, justifying death, destruction, cruelty, torture, and murder, and our extinction, because that's where it leads, that's how it concludes, while opposing anything meaningful and good and true and beneficial. That's the Logos. Opposes the Logos. That's the seventh hypothesis. Is it common? Is the idea that everyone has their own, is entitled to their own opinion and they're all equally true, is that common? Yes. Everything is a matter of perspective and there's no objective truth or meaning. Is that common? Yes. The idea that problems are good guys versus bad guys, is that common in media? Yes, almost all media is like that. How many episodes of whatever is there a philosopher helping someone out of ignorance into wisdom? Very fucking few, if any. So very common, right? Do we accept torture and abuse of human beings, violence against human beings under the idea of punishment? In our justice system, do we punish people instead of addressing the root cause of human problems? Fixing them individually and collectively? Yep. Schools, do we punish kids for bad grades? Yep. Capitalism, do we punish employees for not being a good enough slave? Yep. Politics, do we punish the Palestinians for not being tortured and abused to death good enough? They weren't saints. Did you hear about October the 10th? We should murder them harder. Look at those Iranians. We dropped a bomb, killing 200 or over 150 innocent girls at a girls' primary school. And then when the healthcare officials tried to save those who were still alive, we double tapped, which means there's a second bomb that's specifically designed to kill the medical professionals. They triple tapped, which is a fun development. So those who are trying to help or just collect the bodies for some sort of funeral for not only these innocent children, but the medical professionals, they're getting murdered too. Hooray for capitalism, religion, and right-wing existence. That's what it does. Pretty fucking sick. And if you can't see that as sick, you are fucked. You have no principle of goodness at all. If you don't accept any idea of goodness, you can't play, you can't learn. Just as in science, if you can't accept that if you come up with a theory like 1 + 1 = 2, and it's true, it'll be true tomorrow. If you can't accept that, you can't do math, you can't play. There are certain axioms you have to accept so you can play the game. Now, ultimately, it's not just acceptance. You come to understand, third hypothesis, and know them for yourself, but also know them in an even higher way if you reach this first, the self. If you're clapping your hands for capitalism, for triple tapping a primary school of children, can't play the game because you are opposing any principle of goodness, oneness, truth, and your ability to understand. That's the seventh hypothesis. A kind of ignorant belief, a kind of opposition to your own development, fourth and fifth hypothesis, or a kind of ignorance that opposes the only thing that can help. Third hypothesis, understanding. Is it common? Punishment common, yes. Us versus them, yes. My team versus your team, yes. Establishment left, fifth hypothesis people versus right-wing fourth hypothesis. Both ignorance, different kinds though. Common, yes. Two-party systems. By the way, the religion or the veneration of the seventh hypothesis, good versus evil, God versus Satan. Saints versus sinners. Common? Do we believe in something called evil? Is it part of our common language? The idea of a devil, is that common? So, the most dangerous, the most sick and sadistic, the most opposed to what we need for our development, the most opposed to meaning, meaningful activity of mind. So, just as ninth hypothesis, nihilism says there is no physical activity that's meaningful, this is there is no mental activity that's meaningful. Just kill each other. Sign up to murder Japanese, to murder Iranians, to murder Vietnamese, to murder whoever Epstein's friends want you to murder for capitalism. Seventh hypothesis. At its root, evil. Two fundamental opposing but equal forces of good versus. So there is still forces, there is still some sort of mind, it's just not logos. So the fundamental ideas of the most dangerous, sadistic, cruel, terrible, and common belief humans have, the most fundamental essence of it is the idea of evil and Satan or the devil. Right? Every war, what's the first thing they have to say? Oh, those guys are evil. The Iranians are actually evil. So all of these Epstein, Israeli and Americans are saying, oh, actually, Iranians are evil, actually. We have to murder those children and those doctors and their families because they're evil, actually. Did you hear there was someone that said, we don't like America for murdering us? How dare they not like us for murdering them? They said death to America. One of the guy, but he was, aren't you saying death to Iranians? By your very principle, does that mean that you should be bombed and your doctor should be bombed and your family trying to collect your remains should be bombed in that triple tap? If you're saying death to these innocent children? See? Pure ignorance. Contradictory. Us versus them. It's a rejection of reason, evidence, principles, and axioms. Right? The Epstein billionaires don't have to obey the law. How many people have been prosecuted for their torture and horrible stuff they've been doing to children for decades? Zero. How many people have been prosecuted for driving while brown? How many of them are in the concentration camps of ICE? Hundreds who are being murdered, who are being starved to death. See? Inhumane because it rejects the logos, it rejects principles. One rule for thee, one rule for me. It's a competition. We have to kill as much non-believers, kill all the non-Christians, kill all the non-billionaires. That's Armageddon. So, the fundamental forces of the seventh hypothesis is the idea of evil, the idea of Satan, the idea of punishment, and its consequence, Armageddon, or human extinction. Or extinction. Therefore, this masterpiece of a book has these two perfect, highest examples of dialectic, third hypothesis, Socrates, belief, fourth hypothesis, Jesus. The two best representations of the two fundamental forces that personifies the human condition, belief versus understanding. Given us everything to do what we're doing here. And at the end of this masterpiece, we're addressing the seventh. That's where we are. But if we can read this text, understand what's happening to this level, we want to be able to free ourselves from it. Because Socrates said, I started there. Everyone around me was seventh hypothesis idiots. Every problem is because you're evil, so you're in a perpetual conflict with yourself. Do we allow parents to punish children? So while they were walking away, well, I must be something wrong with me. I must be a bad person. Because I'm a woman, because I made a mistake once, because I didn't get an A on my exam. Sick. Sick. Disgusting. But we allow it, don't we? So whenever we feel ourselves in conflict with ourselves, I'm a bad person, I can't do it, my voice isn't good enough, I'm a bad noodle, I'm a small noodle or a bad bean, we need to be able to free ourselves from it. Hey, welcome, Nitro. But as Socrates says, the way you free yourself from it, the way you look in a mirror, the way you disassociate from being trapped in the mirror is to realize that that mirror lifting up its left hand isn't true. It's not literal. By the way, to take these principles of the seventh hypothesis, good and evil, devil and God, literally, they called barbarians. The Hellenics called them barbarians. They are analogies. So you can be completely wrapped up in your image when you look at yourself in a mirror. In fact, that could be a fantastic fairy tale. The person who spent, I think that we do have one. Narcissus, who was completely wrapped up in his reflection in the river. But in our story, we have the hero, just as the gods are representations of all of these things on the board. You can represent them with gods. If you are talking about the model in mind or being, existing in ousia, that can be known, or the forces that have scope over the physical world. So the second and third hypothesis, that's the gods. That's what it means to be Hellenic or rational. It's not literal. It's not a guy on a cloud pissing on you when it's raining. God, singular. The one God would be the principle of one, or the one self. And your stories that talk about our soul's movement through these hypotheses to become the gods and God, that's the hero's journey. So in our story, the hero frees himself from being fixated on his reflection in the mirror or in the lake by recognizing it's not him. Its purpose is to tell something about him in a different way. It's not his left arm, it's his right arm. But if he looks, he can realize, oh my goodness, I have a cut on my left arm, or I've got some smoosh on my face. Everyone's been laughing at me all day. The purpose of the mirror is to see, I got some smoosh on my face. I need to wipe that off. Otherwise, people will say to me,
Oh, fuck.
and then they'll say,
Why can't these guys shut up? Whether or not it's about Jesus.
they'll say, why can't you shut up? Whether or not it's about Jesus.
You're a baby. You're a little baby.
And they'll say, you're a little baby. Then they'll say,
You actually are too stupid to interact with the rest of the world. You should literally be in a labor camp for the rest of your life. You should be in the mines for the rest of your life.
You should lose the right to vote because you're such a fucking idiot.
it's a really harsh dinner party, and they'll say all those things because you got smush on your face. So, while it's important for us to understand what Socrates is doing, 3, 2, 1, third hypothesis, understanding, using himself. So Socrates' state of mind is second hypothesis, and also his state of being or self is the first. His functioning is third hypothesis to help Jesus get there. Also, we need to recognize what Jesus is doing. He's being triggered, fourth hypothesis, belief. He is opposing he's blocking himself for his development, fifth hypothesis. But in doing so, with words, we can recognize the nature of his ignorance. 7th, God versus Satan. So while that's important for us to, this map is just 9 stages. While this is important for us to read the book properly without interpretation, it's important for us as we want to master the dialectic so we can have all of those divisions. While belief, by definition, is to take a part and oppose the whole, you are limited. You have to accept the Mormon belief in magic underpants, and you can never read Harry Potter. Those are limitations. You oppose non-Mormons. So it's all of the lesser parts in opposition to whole, limit in opposition to freedom. So all of the lesser opposed to the greater is the definition of belief. That's the dialectic, by the way. Definition of self, second hypothesis, mind. It's functioning or demonstration, third hypothesis, understanding. It's divisions, people in the physical world who break off into divisions, us versus them, Mormons versus Scientologists. I don't know, who are the enemies of the Mormons? Catholics have Protestants. Who do the Mormons have? And conclusion, the conclusion is the result of the division. You'll conclude that we can't. Fifth hypothesis, your beliefs conclude in you thinking you can't reach the self. The definition of belief opposes the cognitive function tied to the lesser, opposing the greater. Its function, belief can convince you the bad is good. We all seek the good. That's why we go to school, to understand the good of science, the good of medicine, or the good of whatever we're learning. But a religious person, a right-wing person, or a capitalist can say, well, this is good, working for me, for my profits, giving me the billions of dollars as I take away healthcare, killing the people who are not my religion. Why? Because belief is opposed to reason and evidence. So belief can make you think the bad is good. That's how it manipulates people. Or that if you do this bad thing, if we kill enough Iranian children, your egg prices will go down. Doing a bad thing will have a good result. Breaking the principle of likeness. A fire doesn't make things cold, it makes things hot. So if you do a bad thing, like murder, punishment, violence, you have a bad result. You only make people and humanity and our planet worse. So by definition, belief is the cause of our problems because it opposes understanding, which also is opposing the one, the good and the true. That's our method. Opposes understanding by definition. Simple. If you believe something, if you understand something, why would you have to believe the man in the funny hat? Be they parent, priest, pope, capitalist. I guess capitalists, they wear a monocle, don't they? Like the Monopoly guy. Demonstration is belief is necessary because it makes you think the bad is good and we seek the good, or doing a bad thing will have a good result. Go to war, it will be freedom. Bullshit. Division. We see this play out in politics, we see this play out in religion, we see this play out in our relationships, we see this play out within the conflict of our own soul. Beating yourself up for not knowing, for not being perfect. And our conclusion, Armageddon. Or fate. Belief which opposes understanding blocks us from the activity that solves our problem, so we get stuck in a cycle of fate. So As a result of our dialectic, our conclusion is belief by definition makes us think that the bad is good. That opposes truth. It blocks us from understanding which is needed to reach our good, our goodness or benefit, and is in perpetual conflict within ourselves, within our race, within our relationships, so we can never be together, unified, or in a oneness. Therefore, belief, by definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion in every area of the dialectic opposes truth, goodness, and oneness, which of course is the actual model of wisdom and goodness, and it's what we need to reach so that we can ask, hey, this goodness, oneness, and truth, what's its cause? The good, the one, the true. So belief opposes our goodness, oneness, and truth, and our self, which is the root cause beyond that. And we got a spam again.
AI slop.
It's AI slop.
It's a scam.
And you're doing a scam.
And this is spam.
And it's spam.
You sick fuck.
You sick
I hate to have to tell you this. That was fake. That was AI.
I don't know if you know this, but like weird dudes exist everywhere.
And they're everywhere in my chat today. So, while that is a fun dialectic to prove the root cause of all human problems is simply belief, fourth hypothesis, you can equally do the same thing for understanding. Why is understanding our purpose, our function, the meaning of life, and necessary for goodness, truth, and oneness, or the one self, the good self, and the true self? That's for you to do. So I gotta give you something to do. Otherwise, you can't play. And I want you to play. So if that's what it means, this is what meaningful progress is, and this is our purpose, again, it's one thing to listen to me talk, to reflect on the book that talks about it. It's another thing for you to do a dialectic on it so you can nail it down within your soul. And if this is an eternal truth, an axiom or principle, you can take it with you beyond this lifetime in principle. Therefore, if we are here to do anything as human beings, knowing that our physical world of appearances will end at least after 100 years, sometimes earlier, it has to be this. It has to be this kind of thing. Truth of the logos or mind that transcends the physical and therefore can benefit us beyond this lifetime. So if that's what it means to be for meaningful growth, we also not just want to read the book and understand Socrates and master the art, we want to pull ourselves out of it. These are the states of mind we move in and out of, so that when we find ourselves in that tragic, terrible, disgusting, beating yourself or others up seventh hypothesis, we need to free ourselves from it. How do we free ourselves from it? Oh, that myth that we made up of Sisyphus the philosopher. No, Narcissus the philosopher, who freed himself from identification with his hypothesis, with his reflection in the mirror, by realizing it wasn't him, it was a message that he will only get if he A, doesn't take it literally, and B, sees it, wonders about it as an analogy of the self. Just as Socrates saw when he once thought that there might be a self or mind, but it's disconnected from us, he realized, no, that's not true. That's taking it literally. It's saying the self transcends mind. Much higher, much more significant. It's an analog. So our experience of ignorance of the fifth hypothesis as human beings, our opposition to this, to philosophy, has to exist. How else are we going to learn about the self other than by looking in the mirror? And you could ask, well, why does it have to be a state of mind? That sucks, because that means we have to experience it as suffering. Can't it just be a physical sign? No, because it's a principle. You can't see a principle in the physical world. You have to experience it in your state of mind. Therefore, there is a purpose to the fifth hypothesis, to teach us about the transcendental nature of the self, and when we realize that, we are free from it. Therefore, for each of these negative hypotheses, or 4 kinds of ways you can oppose the fifth, the fourth, the third, or the second, we want to find out how we are supposed to look at them so that whenever we are in them, we can pull ourselves out or free ourselves, just like the new myth of Narcissus. But here's the thing. How do we do that? How does each of these, when understood properly, show us the necessity of the thing it rejects? Therefore, if your position is defined by the rejection of that other thing, and you see that that other thing you're rejecting necessarily has to exist, you can't be stuck in that position anymore. Make sense? Seventh is defined by opposition of third. If you fully understand the seventh, you see the third has to exist by its own reasoning, by its own logic. So if this thing that exists, if the seventh opposes this thing you now see you can't oppose, you can't be stuck in the seventh. Socrates says that's the purpose of each of these, including perhaps the most dangerous seventh. Like a nihilist, it'll suck, be depressed, black-pilled doomer, and an eighth hypothesis, a materialist, can make, I don't know, make bombs or seek profit. But it's these seventh hypothesis people who actively use whatever they're doing to blow up the world, making them the most dangerous. Personified by good versus evil. So, how can we understand these more? Well, there's another principle we've been learning about in the book. Oh, analogy. Analogy. How do we solve the problem? Look at your reflection in the mirror, or these negatives, as an analogy. How does analogy work? We've got this on the board. If we, using the principle of as above, so below, or the principle behind the axiom that allows for analogy to exist is terms may vary, but relations stay the same. So in other words, got a big section on the board, look. And we did this earlier. These cognitive functions that we were going through just now, knowledge, understanding, wisdom, nous and dianoia, belief in materialism, one way of how we understand it is through analogy. So we applied the dialectic. Hey, it's the definition of self. It's self in relation. So here it is, self in relation to itself. It's self participating in being through ousia. It's self knowing itself. You've just understood what is the object of knowing. So that quote that's misquoted on Facebook by your grandma, Socrates thinks he's the wisest man in Athens because he knows nothing. Therefore, I'm just as wise as Socrates because I'm also an idiot. That's not the quote. The quote is Socrates saying, I am wiser than these other jabronis in politics or generals of armies or judges of courts because they think they know shit that is not knowable. So I'm wiser than these jabronis because I don't think I know something that I don't. That's the actual quote. I don't think I know something I don't, which means he must recognize what is the object of knowledge. And we can understand it through analogy by jumping over to this group of 1, 2, 3, 4 to this group of 1, 2, 3, 4. It's self in relation to itself. That self, that knowing of that model functions self to others, or demonstration. That's understanding. Oh, so we've got the 4 hierarchically arranged terms of the self and other, the 2 primary self pairs. We've got the dialectic, definition, demonstration, division, conclusion. We've got the cognitive functions, but we can also bring in the causes and jump over to the causes. That's analogy. That's how we gain insight. Hey, this knowledge is the paradigm. It's what we've been talking about. Self, knowing itself, its purpose. Remember? Because that's not the end. It's not the final cause. It's not the self. Its purpose is as a paradigm. See? Jumping over to a different system. That's analogy. Allowing us to gain insight. So the causes, the paradigm cause. How do we understand the causes? Jump over to another analogy. Hey, Billy needs a house to live. That's the first cause for Billy having a house. He needs blueprints. He needs a builder. So there's our paradigm and the activity based on that paradigm. The blueprints and the builder. There needs to be an activity, building. And there needs to be some material, bricks. So that allows us to use analogy to understand the causes. And you can double jump and triple jump all the way through. There's lots that you can put in because it's the same relationships, different terms. What we're doing now is we want to gain insight into these negative hypotheses, so whenever we catch ourselves in them, we know what to do to free ourselves from them. But how do we understand them? Well, there are a couple of new ideas that we've been playing with. There's the pyramid. The pyramid shows the one, can I can't do it that way. The one thing we're here to do, therefore, a single thing we can focus our attention, our time, our life, energy, our relationships, everything we do can be focused on one activity, which gives us a singular focus, which again is contemplation, which puts us into that state of mind Socrates called justice in the book, like a flow state, because we've got a single activity, we are unified within our soul and mind. Dialectic, the meaning of life, our purpose. Every intelligent being, but us specifically as well as human souls. We saw that the nature of the human condition can be defined as simply the pathologos in opposition to the logos. Or, if you're a good person, mastering the logos to purify the pathologos root cause of human problems. Both of which is the dialectic. The dialectic used to purify our pathologos is midwifery. The dialectic applied to truth is what we're doing here, the logos. So our life is a kind of dialectical meditation on our pathologos, which results in a self-image, a state of mind, and functioning. There's our self-triad. The existence, the highest existence, yourself, your power or your state of mind, and your activity. So while the dialectic has scope over these two have scope over the next level. You can have a pathologos. So that's why the unexamined life isn't worth living. Because if you don't do what we do here and master the dialectic, your life becomes a contemplation or a further entrenching yourself in a negative state of mind, a negative self-image, and a negative functioning. You make yourself worse. Your lifetime only made your problem worse. That's how debate functions.
Debate dweeb.
Debate means I think I know the truth already, your beliefs you're carrying. And how can I use the logos in a criminal way, in an unjust way, to justify the beliefs and opinions I already have? That's pathologos. That's belief. That's debate. The logos is something you follow. It's the guide. So we follow the logos as we do here. You come to know the mastery of your functioning, third hypothesis, your best state of mind, the second, and knowing the self, the first. Therefore, the first three hypotheses is the threesome of self. 4, the dialectic. You play this out. So again, scope. Your definition is your identity of yourself. That functions as your state of being. The drama is how that divides up. Do you play out an interpretation through belief, the pathologos kind of division, or are you spending your life energy perfecting, testing, sharing your dialectical understanding? As a result, your conclusion will either be success or failure. Division or conflict of belief, interpretation, or dialectical return to the sacred source, the self-logos, as well as how it will conclude. But every life drama, every dream, every fantasy has these 4 steps. Every character in your daydreams or night dreams or fantasies has you as an idea of self, and you're in a certain state of mind that allows you a certain role within a drama or functioning within a drama, and that will either end in a success or a failure. So 4 stages to understand our condition, or 3 stages, or 2 things, or 1 dialectic. The last part of the pyramid is the 5 categories. We've already looked at the logos functioning. We move through the 5th hypothesis into the 4th, into the 3rd, into the 2nd, and then following Socrates in the book to the 1st. But we said, hey, that's just the truth. That's just the logos. We also have to master our humanness, which also means that there is a pathologos, 5 steps of rejection. The rejection of the new truth, that's how we interpret. So as human beings, we hear something new. Our first response is, I don't care about that. That's stupid. Come across this Twitch stream, and that's dumb. Do you play Fortnite? Where's Fortnite? You should play Fortnite. Do you play Minecraft? This is stupid. 4th, offering alternatives. Actually, I do like what he's talking about, but he's doing it wrong. He should be Mormon. 3, some of those ideas are good. I'm going to keep my old beliefs and be a Mormon Minecraft guy, but I might use a little bit of dialectic in it. Trying to unify them both. Can I be a philosophical Mormon? And then finally, our goal in interpretation is to reject our old beliefs or pathologos and accept the new truth or new stage of development. So these 5 kinds of interpretation happen at each stage of our 5 kinds of hypotheses. You need both. You need the truth and the human process of going through both the new insight and our human development through interpretation to our integration of it. Which means 5 stages. So we've got these 5 hypotheses, and we've got these 4 oppositions. We can add a possible 10th hypothesis, which would be the rejection of self. That's a question. In the book, Socrates said, we are supposed to add to the Parmenides. Could this be the pathologos? If this is the one self of the self-logos, could this be the pathologos? Therefore, would that help us to understand these 4 here? We talked about the pathologos 4th hypothesis, but also you could say, well, yeah, but pathologos does function. Even these people who, like these atheists in the 5th hypothesis, they don't know. There's They're influenced from their stupid religious upbringing. Well, if these guys talk about God and they're all crazy, there must be no God. That's like saying if Donald Trump says this is justice, murdering innocent people for my Epstein billionaire friends and myself, then there must be no justice. No, just because these religious people or conservatives or capitalists were wrong or your parents were wrong doesn't mean that beauty or justice or truth or God doesn't exist. Therefore, they are still influenced by their belief. So fourth and fifth are connected. Could it be the way in which we are attached to a belief and it functions in fifth? Could it be these? Do all of these negative hypotheses give the specific flavors or versions? Hey, you're either ignoring everything, including the physical world parts. You're ignoring it. You're rejecting everything, including the physical world whole. You're ignoring everything of mind. Seventh hypothesis, logos. Or you're rejecting the whole of mind. So your kind of pathologos belief that you're attached to, fourth hypothesis, the way in which you oppose your own development, fifth hypothesis, is to say everything is meaningless, which is a kind of ninth hypothesis, by recognizing that seventh hypothesis, it's just an unending battle between the devils and the angels, good and evil, and there's no meaningful development, there's no reason to this, it's all stupid and pointless. That's how Socrates started, which is a kind of nihilism. Seventh hypothesis. So, seventh hypothesis defines the kind of ignorance. Therefore, do all pathologos, would they all fit under these four? If necessarily these have to exist and you're rejecting that which exists, is that a false idea? To see they necessarily exist has to be a message about the first hypothesis. So even wisdom isn't real. Second and third, if it's not real, it's a reflection of the self. It's a kind of reality. So if self unfolds itself into its reflection, the way of movement is to see that they are all reflections. They're all analogical reflections of the self to help us learn about the self. That's how we move. But if you reject any of those lessons, you are going to be blocked into learning the self. What is the ruling term about blocking our learning to the self? What's the learning to self? The logos of self. What's our goal? To reach the self through the logos, so we can know the self and logos. So if the self logos is the first hypothesis, and we get that self logos via its reflections, second, third, fourth, fifth, and our return, fifth, fourth, third, second, that's our purpose, then if you reject any stage, you are being blocked from the self logos. Therefore, what's the name of the kind of belief that is a block, that is our problem, is the cause of all human problems? Because human purpose is to master the self logos. Therefore, the definition of all human problems is the pathologos. The false idea of the self with a false state of mind and a false activity. There's our threesome of self. Therefore, the ruling term of all pathologos, or the 10th hypothesis, is the pathologos. Idea of self, which is a rejection of the self logos. Meaning any of these states of mind you can move into in a problem. We've got another set of four. color? This one. We have our fifth interpretation, or 5I, which is to reject the Logos and, as Jesus said, reject the Logos. So you have a new insight, or you learn something new from someone else, or you read it yourself, or you've come across the stream. Your first response is, this is dumb, this isn't Minecraft. Jesus said, by the way, let's see it. Geez, we just read this. He said, I just had a new insight. Before we talk about Satan. Hey. If a work needs to be interpreted, it's incomplete. Because it needs something to be added, ignored, or rejected. Our work doesn't need interpretation. By the way, the lowest member, says Jesus, of that tribe. I didn't see that before. But that helps our hypothesis. What was our hypothesis? Again, it's a hypothesis because we don't know if it's true yet. It's that the 10th hypothesis is the pathologos. What's that defined by? Tribe identity of self. Tribe accepted states of mind. Tribe kind of activity to fight the other tribes, bringing again Armageddon, sexism, racism stuff. Tribe shit. That's why we call it primitive. That's why we call it savage. The savage, primitive nature of human problems is tribal identity through the pathologos kind of belief. That's the nature of human problems in a sentence. And here we see sound drop.
Jester goon maxed.
Big Jester goon maxing the haters.
If you don't know, now you know.
Now you know that Jesus is saying, hey, that tribe of interpreters, giving us a clue. The lowest kind will introduce their pathologos into the work. So, not only is the lowest kind of interpretators rejecting the logos, they're also introducing pathologos. Fundamental false belief about self and reality you don't even know you have and you think is you, and is the cause of your problems and ties you to the suffering of fate and the prison of reincarnation. That's fifth interpretation. Fourth, let's call that 5I. 5I, 4I, 3I, 2I, and 1I. Which is our goal, by the way. So we can go through those. And there's also another set of things we've been exploring the last couple of days that might help us in our goal. What's our goal? To properly understand each of those possible negative hypotheses so that whenever we are in them, we can free ourselves from our pathologos problem and allow for our meaningful development and growth. Right, so if we sufficiently understand these, we can be free. Worth doing? If so, hang out until after the break. I gotta take a quick bio